LeBron James, he has joined the exodus from California. He may still not escape the wealth tax.
I can tell you the immediate savings he's going to get. Philadelphia's income and state tax compared to California, he's going to be saving about half of what he's paying anyways right now.
Billions are moving out of high tax areas and into high growth states. Texas and Florida leading the nation in net inbound migration. California recorded the nation's largest net outbound migration. More than 100,000 income tax filers.
It's permanent because these CEOs are moving their businesses. They're moving their executives.
Those are a couple of clips from some news stories that I saw just very recently. And at first I didn't think anything of it. We see these headlines and news stories all the time. I'm sure you've seen a bunch of them too. But shortly after I did, it got me to thinking. So I went back and watched them again, and something clicked with me. I thought, you know what? They're reporting on the presence or absence of one person, sometimes a collection of people or a business in one community, one state, one county, whatever the case might be. And as I mentioned, you've probably seen reports about wealthy residents leaving high-tax states and geographic locations. It happens all the time. But it got me to think, if they're doing that, why are they not reporting on men and their financial contributions and economic value? Right, so listen, when a billionaire moves from one state to another, analysts, they don't stop with the question along the line of, well, what are we going to do now that this one person left? No, they estimate the income that's leaving with that person or a company or a whole bunch of people. They also measure the lost taxes, the reduced business and consumer spending, and the pressures then that is placed upon the population and what that puts on the state's budget. When a company relocates to another state or it closes, officials count the jobs, the payroll, community investments, and local economic activity that disappear with it. So that's what I want to cover today. And before we're done, I'm going to give you what I think are the two biggest reasons that men's economic impact and their value are never discussed. When you hear it, it's going to sound very logical. And let me know if you've had this thought before. Because like I said, it just dawned on me. And it's one more piece of evidence that they really don't give a shit about you. So listen, in all of those cases, leaving is treated as information. The assumption is that the state offered a bad deal in these examples. A combination of taxes, services, regulations, and quality of life, and some people decided that that's not for them, so they're leaving. So people, again, or companies, leaving these costly environments is assessed as feedback about the state or other conditions that they left. But when men leave universities, marriage, the workforce, churches, civic organizations, or any other major institution, that's when the story changes a lot. What we almost never hear is the equivalent of the state migration report. What does the institution lose when men leave? How much tuition disappears from universities and colleges? How much do labor and production drop? How much tax revenue is a city losing? How many donations, volunteer hours, families, future members or future alumni? How much of all of that goes missing when guys walk away from education and other type institutions? So the point I want to make clear is that we hear all over the news that missing men are counted.
A large number of American men in particular, men in their prime working years, are actually not working, and they're not even looking for work.
The percentage of 30-year-olds who were both married and homeowners, 1950, it was over 50%. And in 2020, it is under 15%.
They do a very good job of it in a lot of different industries and institutions. But never analyzed is the value of those men that walk away. Real quick, before going any further, I want to be clear that some men have never been involved in institutions such as religion, education, or marriage because of the risk that's involved and the costs. Others leave after experiencing the loss. Those different reasons for walking away do exist, but they don't change the operational result for a given institution. An empty college seat produces no tuition regardless of why men aren't there. And similarly, unfilled employment positions produce no output when men avoid them, irrespective of whether they left after a false harassment accusation or never participated in the first place. The point is that lack of participation is not accidental. Men don't accidentally or forget to enroll in college or to remain in a job, to attend a church, or to volunteer at a community group. Participation requires repeated decisions to keep investing time, money, trust, and loyalty. Right now, institutions routinely report the participation side of this problem. Here's some common examples. Universities report that men's enrollment dropped X number of enrollments or a percent. Employers and policymakers report specifically how many prime-age men are outside of the labor force. Researchers report declining marriage rates and numbers with incredible accuracy. Military recruiters do it the same. You get the idea. But as you may have noticed before even clicking on this video, that reporting stops with headcounts. A university may say that its male enrollment has lost, let's say, 5,000 men over 15 years. But what we never hear is, compared with male enrollment 15 years ago, this decline represents an estimated annual loss of this much in tuition, some housing revenue, campus spending, state funding, and future alumni donations. That's what we don't hear. And likewise, labor industries may report worker shortages by the number. But what we never hear from them is something specific like, the disappearance of this many male workers has cost us this much in unfilled labor hours, delayed projects, recruiting new employees, and lost institutional knowledge. And of course, marriage is harder to price out, but the same omissions still exist there as well. Fewer marriages mean fewer households, fewer children, less combined income and household production. There's more responsibility that's transferred to single parents, extended family, and public programs, right? So as you can see, they discuss the demographic trend. What they don't give is the institutional balance sheet. And that brings us back to the state migration example that I opened up with.
Texas and Florida leading the nation in net inbound migration. California recorded the nation's largest net outbound migration, more than 100,000 income tax filers.
When taxpayers leave a state, their exit is discussed as a response to poor or unacceptable conditions. The point is that whether it's an individual, a family, or a business that's leaving a state, they're walking away to a better option. So economists and media do financial assessments to determine the damage that's done to that state, sticking with that example. And the same is true when companies lose customers. Businesses calculate churn. They estimate lifetime consumer value. And they study why consumers left and what it will cost to replace them with new customers. They don't dismiss reduced revenue by simply saying that people are no longer buying their stuff. They actually put that into their financial loss in real dollars. Now you get the idea. They all do it all the time. But as you now know, the inconsistency appears when the people who exit are men. When people leave a state, the departure is treated as a warning to the institution. When men leave religion, the workforce, or opt out of marriage, the departure is discussed as your deficiency and the file is closed. The deeper question that we should be asking is, whose exit society is willing to recognize as an institutional loss? Again, whether that institution is marriage, education, workforce, or anything else. And institutions cannot credibly claim that this type of analysis is beyond their ability. Let's talk about that just a little bit. When I worked at Nova Southeastern University, our office, a gentleman in our office, produced every year a report that estimates the university's economic impact on Broward County, Miami-Dade County, and the state of Florida. Universities do this because they want legislators, donors, local officials, and the public to understand that their presence in the state or the community has economic value. So they estimate payroll, employment, student and employee spending, the knowledge that their students then take out into the public. I mean, seriously, everything from supplier activity, tax revenue, and a bunch of other stuff. Hospitals do it. Military does it. Labor unions do it. Even tourism boards. Now, I understand that their estimates often are never perfect, but they're damn close. They depend on assumptions, comparison periods, some multipliers here and there, and, of course, some projections. Yet companies still produce these reports because even an imperfect estimate can reveal the scale of an economic contribution of an entity, whether it's, again, a university, a hospital, or men as a whole. So the intelligence and methodology are already there to do the same thing for the economic value of men's participation. And we would not even need a massive national study that covers every university, company, church, or civic organization in the country. Researchers and economists could begin with just several representative institutions, let's say in one sector. Take a small group of universities, compare their current male enrollment with a baseline from 10 or 15 years ago, then estimate the direct tuition, fees, housing, all of those things. Now, my point here is that the absence of a national report on the absence of men in many different institutions is not evidence that their economic value cannot be estimated or reported. It means that nobody with the data and resources has chosen to do it. So the trillion-dollar question is, why would a university, a manufacturing plant, or a state legislature avoid producing that objective value regarding men's presence or absence? The most charitable answer is probably that it's complicated, but I'm not here to be charitable. The more uncomfortable but also more likely and more accurate reason is that measuring and reporting the impact of men walking away changes the problem entirely. Without a price tag, men's declining participation remains an abstract social issue. It's just a headline to discuss. But once the loss is measured, it becomes an objective institutional problem. Now a university board can ask when administrators first noticed the decline. They can make somebody responsible for that. Shareholders can ask why recruitment costs increased while the labor pipeline deteriorated. Some CEO is going to get his ass fired, or her ass. Governors and mayors can ask why public spending is compensating for participation that has disappeared. People will no longer get elected when voters realize how incompetent they are and losing money from men and their value. Now, once the loss has a number, the loss has an owner, is what I'm trying to say. Somebody must be responsible when we get the objective outcomes. Without measurement, leaders can say, this is a complicated national trend. However, with measurement, someone can respond, it happened under your leadership, your management, and this is what it's going to cost us, and now this is what we need to do to get out of it. Now, there's another reason that the admission of men's value may be uncomfortable for the general public in society. No one can say that a state or an industry lost billions when men left without also acknowledging that men were creating millions or billions of dollars in value while they were participating. They're comfortable saying that they're worried about men walking away and not being engaged. But let me tell you, in fact, you probably already know, they are far less comfortable saying that men are needed. It means that men create value, but their cooperation was taken for granted. And it means that churches, universities, and governments all failed to provide an exchange that men considered to be valuable to them. So that's what's behind the missing admission of men's value. They treated men's participation as an inexhaustible resource. They assumed that men would continue enrolling, working, marrying, serving, donating, and supporting institutions, regardless of what they had to offer men and what men would receive in return. And that's why they'll never assess and report on men's economic impacts, despite such reports being done tens of thousands of times every year, again, by labor unions, individual companies, city planners, colleges and universities. They all do it all the time. They count the missing men, but never the cost of the lost participation when they drive men away. Oh yeah, they're interested in the headlines as a social problem, but never produce the economic and operational balance sheet. They simply ask you to change without asking the institution that offered you a shitty deal whether it's worth accepting. Because that way, no one's responsible. That's it. No one but you. And the excuse cannot simply be that the analysis is impossible. As I mentioned, institutions already conduct economic impact studies. They already examine indirect effects all the time. They have the intelligence. They have the methodology. And in many cases, they have the data. What they lack is the fucks to give. So listen, thanks for sticking around to the end. Be careful out there. I'll be back as soon as I can.